breaks anymore. I'm already broken enough today. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Discussing Tabletop. It is October 28th, 2023. Oh my god, I really am broken today. Don't mind me. I'll try my best to work. It's been a long day. I had my little stream earlier today, and that was the easy part, but I've been like freaking running around since then. So I'm here now. I'm alive. Worm's nice enough to be here and I guess make sure I work, function, lead me along, help me to not break. I don't know, all those things.
I mean, I'm also not firing on all cylinders, so we'll see how this goes.
Ooh, it'll be a fun day today. We'll work on it. We'll make sure it works. We'll see. Anyway, yes, there are topics of things and newsy things to talk about first, as we normally kind of hit into here on the show. So I've thrown docket. The word English word docket didn't work for me in my brain for a second into chat. I guess let's just start. This is the nice thing that we have. Wizards is running a Halloween charity event for the money for the Seattle Children's Hospital and Extra Life. They have a big schedule for it. It's charity. It's, good things. Charity good, to do.
Extra Life is good.
Yeah. And, the Seattle Children's Hospital, it is a good thing to raise money for. So they have an entire schedule for the Monday, October 30th through the Friday, November 3rd, from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. So that's a pretty long day. Or is it not a long day? No, that's 3 hours each day.
9 a.m. to 12 p.m. is 3 hours each day for 5 days.
Yeah.
I had to count because my brain couldn't do that.
For whatever reason, I'm like, I thought they'd have longer days, but then I'm like, oh no, that's only 3 hours they're doing. But it looks like they are doing some.
Yeah, they're doing like one thing an hour for 3 hours.
Noon to 8 on Saturday for their game day stream for a bunch more stuff then. So that's the other thing. So yeah, there you go. They do have...
Like, they say the people. They don't say, like, what they're gonna be doing.
Yeah.
They say a variety of things.
Yeah, I agree. It's sort of like, it would be a little nicer to know a little bit more. But...
Oh, then on Saturday the 4th, they're going to be doing a much longer one from 12 to 8 p.m. So they're going to be doing an 8-hour stream on Saturday.
It sounds like they'll just be doing a lot of, like, gaming, which I'm like, okay, so the two things they list are Baldur's Gate 3 and MTG Arena, which I guess are technically Wizards games, so,
yeah. I
mean, those are appropriate, but I get, it's
well,
that
they
one...
a variety including, so they might do some other, like, Wizards-based games.
Or some, who knows what they'll do. But I mean, like, I do find that funny that it's like, Baldur's Gate 3, it's one of those things of like, yes, the Magic people can play it because it's technically the same company. Work that. Support it.
I mean, they own the rights to the world and the content, so... Yeah.
It is appropriate. It seems like a weird thing on the Magic the Gathering Twitch channel. I'm not gonna lie. There's a D&D Twitch channel. That would feel more appropriate.
Oh, I see. Yeah, so it's on twitch.tv/magic. Okay. Yeah, you're right. I don't know why I thought it'd be like on like Wizards twitch.tv/wizards or something.
Oh no, they have a channel set. I knew from before.
I know they have dedicated separate ones for D&D and Magic. I just kind of figured they'd be doing it on a generic Wizards of the Coast one.
Yeah, you'd think, but no. This is maybe they do some. I don't know if the D&D side does any kind of charity. They might, but they might do something separate. So. But, again, charity good. It's very nice to do. I'm glad Wizards is doing it.
I mean, they're going on Saturday. They're going to be doing a 3-hour one-shot as well. 5-day ending. So they're going to be doing a one-shot on the Magic Show. I you know what? I could totally see them though. Let's see. Does it say? I assume
it's set on it's set on one of their Magic Worlds on Eldraine. So that's actually really interesting.
Eldraine,
because
there it is.
Because I don't think they've done a lot of stuff for using Eldraine as a plane. They've done a lot of other planes and D&D stuff. So that might be one that's. It seems a little more interesting because I don't think we've seen that. Neat.
Yeah, they do have it, but it's like they don't really push it too much because they don't mix their they tend not to mix their content. So I guess by mixing their content, they're going to mix content.
It's that weird thing that we've had little we've had two books on different planes, and then we've had a couple of I would say they're almost unearthed arcanas that are for if you want to play on this Magic the Gathering plane, here you go, here's some basic information about it and a few small things, which is neat. But again, they create a lot of very interesting worlds in. I don't want to bust on it, but I'm going to bust on it. Their Magic the Gathering worlds tend to be more interesting than Forgotten Realms.
Forgotten Realms is kind of the most generic.
Yeah.
I do agree that I wish they would develop more than just the Forgotten Realms, because they have a lot of others. I know a lot of people want Black Sun? Dark Sun? What's it called?
Dark Sun has issues, and they would never do it because of those issues, because somebody
I hear that every time. I bring it up to anyone.
If I would say Paizo does Dark Sun, they would be able to do it because Paizo has a maturity to be able to address some of the very darker tones that are in Dark Sun. With Wizards as they've been, I don't see them doing it because it deals with things a lot of things with slavery, genocide, and a lot of other horrible things that go on there. Dark Sun is a very harsh world. It's
also
people like it because it's harsh, but yeah.
People also like Mystara. That's also D&D. They own that, right?
I think they do. I think they haven't done stuff with that for years.
They also they kind of own Eberron. Eberron's kind of this weird thing where it's it's kind of co-owned. Yeah,
Eberron's kind of co-owned, and the Eberron people still do Eberron stuff here and there occasionally. Do I follow that company now? I might. I think we've talked about them before that they do Eberron stuff. It's just kind of hard to notice it sometimes because it's kind of this in-between thing between the two of them. But anyway,
who knows? They've Diablo 2 was adapted for D&D 2nd and 3rd edition, so there was a Diablo. Yeah,
I knew there was a lot of stuff that was adapted for the 3.0, 3.5 day time period.
Dragonlance. I'd love to see them do stuff with Dragonlance. I always liked Dragonlance.
Dragonlance was... that's the thing is, I don't know, it might not be as popular now, but it could still be, because Dragonlance was the D&D's answer to Game of Thrones. Before Game of Thrones, though. So it's sort of that same kind of political thriller kind of stuff. That's what Dragonlance was a lot of. It had that nobility, political thriller kind of stuff as a big undertone for you're just those little guys dealing with that shit going on above you. So you're the people that are getting the fallout from Game of Thrones style shit. You're not the big nobles on top. You're those little guys that are getting shit on for it, and go on adventures. And it's interesting. I like Dragonlance too. That's one of them.
Apparently they combined something with... they did something with Warcraft once, too.
Oh, they are going to do something with Dragonlance, weren't they? Yeah, they said they were. I don't know what they're doing.
You're right. I think they did say something about that. I completely forgot about that. I don't remember either.
Yeah.
And there's also Greyhawk. Sorry, I'm just thinking, what are the ones I can't... I'm just sorry, I'm just trying to remember the ones that I...
Greyhawk is... Because we've gotten Ravenloft, we've gotten Spelljammer, there's a couple other settings which are technically Faerun, Al-Qadim is technically the Middle Easty section of Faerun. I think it technically is, but it also is kind of on its own thing. But it's very Arabian Nights kind of Middle Eastern, and so it's I don't know. You could probably update it now to make it actually not insensitive, but I think the old version in AD&D was probably a little insensitive gotta be honest, it's like 40 years ago now. I'm not gonna lie. Just remembering that it exists, I'm kind of on the one, because we got Planescape, which we've just came out with. Is there anything I'm missing off the top of my head? Dark Sun, Ravenloft, Academe, Planescape, Forgotten Realms, Greyhawk, Dragonlance.
I'm on a page that like lists them all. But...
I'm trying to remember because I still have some of the. I got a bunch of them. I have these D&D collector cards.
Oh, Nintir Vale, I think was.
They had a bunch of them. Like AD&D, Spelljammer, Monsters.
Yeah. Nintir Vale was the default setting for 4th edition.
You can have a hook horror from Greyhawk, or this sea zombie who's very naked and bloated. It was art. Or a giant planet that would eat you. Gravisphere.
Anyway.
Look, I have D&D.
Sorry, we got on a tangent about other worlds from them mixing between Magic, their charity, and their Magic charity and D&D.
Adamantine Dragon. Anyway.
Speaking of mixing worlds, Marvel.
Yes, Marvel. That's a thing that now we have a announcement about. And this was actually a very interesting one that we're actually seeing, because from what I've heard about it, most people assumed because Disney's doing their trading card game Warcana, they would add in stuff from like Star Wars and Marvel to that. But it feels like maybe they're trying to keep that a little separate from their other brands that they have. And so they're allowing something like this, Marvel, to collaborate with Magic the Gathering. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's not keeping all your eggs in one basket, certainly. So I'm curious as to, the mannerism that we're going to see now for the stuff. But we know that it's going to be like a Universes Beyond. We're not sure what form it's going to take, though.
You have a link?
Sorry, let me give you the link here.
I can't comment unless I speed read whatever you post, because you don't post these ahead of time.
I should really post the links. This one, I because my afternoon is so delayed, normally I even put them in the docket earlier in there, so I'm a little bit more ahead of time. This I had to make sure I had all my links and stuff and find all the pages I was going to use today, and then put them into the docket. So I was behind schedule very heavily today. Today was just run.
Okay, so it's going to be Universes.
I mean, it makes sense it was going to be Universes Beyond.
I mean, of course, but I'm just like, I don't know. You're making it sound like it'd be something a little bit different.
Well,
like
I think for what I'm thinking is it going to be a secret lair? Is it going to be a commander deck? Is it going to be an entire set like Lord of the Rings?
Got it. Oh, I see what you mean. Okay, yeah.
They haven't really told us what that's going to be, only that they're working on it now. So it is, I don't know, it might be like a new one on the schedule too, because we have that kind of upcoming schedule for like the next year and a half still.
I mean, this might have been one of the mystery ones, because I remember they had a few
there were a few mysteries, so they could have left those open for other deals and stuff too.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah,
but again,
so this might be one of the mysteries they maybe have been working on for a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, it's fine. Like, at this point in time, I'm like, whatever, to when they do a Universes Beyond. It definitely feels like a whatever a lot of times for me. I've never... I think I kind of said, like, there's just a part of its existence I'm not a fan of. But, like, I think it's because, like, we can have stuff that fits very well and stuff that fits a lot less with it, and you never know what you're going to get theme-wise. Like, certainly, Lord of the Rings was one that I was like, oh, hey, that fits the theme of magic very well and that kind of fantasy stuff. I'll take that.
But, yeah, I don't know. Like, the Universes Beyond thing doesn't really bother me. Although it is weird, like, if you're playing, like, because Universes Beyond tend not to be, like, strictly legal in certain, like, gameplay settings, right?
Universes Beyond, I believe, is legal in Commander, Modern, and all the legacies. Magic? Let me just check. Gathering, Universes Beyond, legality rules. They're not standard legal, which is fine. Like, there's not a lot standard legal. But they're legal in eternal formats. And eternal formats are Legacy, Vintage, Commander, Pauper. So probably not. Oh, and Modern, and Pioneer, and Historic.
All right.
Oh no, Modern, Pioneer, and Historic are not eternal. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm reading that wrong. So they're generally legal in eternal formats. But, I mean, it's sort of like you can have something in here in... I think the problem with it kind of being this way anyway is, like, that's not, like, legal... It's legal in anything. Is things like Vintage and Legacy are already very expensive formats to get into if you want to really seriously play them. Because they are all the sets, you know, so you have cards from everywhere. And these are just naturally going to be more expensive cards, especially if they're very good, because they're only ever going to get one printed.
Yeah.
And, you know, so...
Yeah, it's weird, like, I get it, and so I guess it hurts the game a little bit. I'm just thinking, like, as far as, like, the world goes, also, it's like, both... It's like it's kind of explained, like the whole idea of like the planeswalking and stuff, right?
Oh, they do at least say the story of the sets are non-canon to the Magic universe. They're just like extra things. It is just weird. You can have those cards or something. You can summon them from some kind of weird fantasy dimension that that doesn't exist here with weird things. I summon like the Warhammer card in my fantasy deck to like nuke things.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's fine, maybe it'll be cool, maybe it'll be good,
I mean, it makes them money.
Everything makes them money. They make too much money because that's all they want to make now. That's just it. They've gone very corporate.
They're literally printing money.
Mm-hmm. Another thing I did want to talk about a little bit, because we now know about it, is there is the new set that's coming out, which is honestly a fine-looking set, Lost Caverns of Ixalan, and we do know the mechanics for them, so I at least wanted to briefly kind of go over that. I haven't felt like going super in-depth on anything. But this is all about exploring, so they have, like, this new mechanic crafting, or craft with artifact. Exile this artifact, exile another artifact you control, artifact in your favor, turn this card transformed. So it's a type of transformation, which they've got the two-sided cards, they've had them before. This one is all about, like, you're crafting something, so you, like, sacrifice it with something else to make a new item. It's a neat idea. They also do have other...
So it's like fusion from...
Yeah, kind of like I know that mechanic. I watched some of the anime.
Yeah, the early Yu-Gi-Oh mechanic of fusion.
Yeah,
not any of the newfangled like polygrat fusion of Dark Side or whatever the shit they have now.
Yeah. Ixalan always had kind of these double-faced cards that transform. They're having a new crop of them. They came back as legendary lands and stuff, which was really cool. I think it was a neat one that they had back in the day, and they're bringing it back. They have Descend as a new keyword. You descend if a permanent card was put into your graveyard from anywhere. So it's about, it triggers when something just goes to your graveyard from anywhere. Start a card, dies in the battlefield, whatever, It's another graveyard mechanic things. Those are always popular. So yeah. They do have Descend as it doing that. They also have Descend, a Descend with a number, or Fathomless Descent, which doesn't have a number, which is apparently an X, where it's if stuff is in your graveyard, you get some stuff to it. And the other thing is Discover. Which allows you to just get a free card. I mean, they're all really neat things, and they sound like exploration. I think that's the big thing I say of it.
Yeah.
They have a lot of that.
Theme.
They've got the theme of like, oh, it's the lost caverns under our continent. We've discovered them. We're exploring it now. They're on brand with the theme. They all none of the mechanics seem overpowered. They all seem neat. They probably will have their uses. Some of them are variations on mechanics we've already had, which are fine. I don't mind when they just make a variation on something we already have, because it means that we get a little bit of the same thing, but with like different ways of doing it. So it's neat. So honestly, when Magic's just doing stuff like Lost Caverns of Ixalan, I'm happiest. These are nice little sets. These are the kind of things I like collecting. I haven't collected Gunbot Magic. These are the sets I like collecting. They're neat and stuff like that. I want more of this. Because it is coming out physically soon, and I think we would have been talking about it this week if it had actually been not delayed. I did want to mention that the physical version of the Book of Many Things has been delayed. So now you can purchase the physical ones on October 31st. I guess the digital-only version is available on the 14th, and they like putting physical first. But we aren't talking about it this week because it's been delayed. That's pretty much most of what I want to say about this. We'll probably talk about the Deck of Many Things, the Book of Many Things, when it comes out next week. So, yeah. I mean, that's the big thing I wanted to say about that. Now let's move away from Wizards, because honestly, Wizards is a mixed emotional bag for me every time. They do one good thing, they do one bad thing, they just like to find my way. Anyway, this is one of those things that I guess you really should address, but because Pathfinder Society is just like all the organized play is pretty popular, they actually have had to make statements based on the Pathfinder Remaster project that they're doing. So, yeah. They didn't really...
Sorry, yeah. I don't know yet. Ask me in 1d4 months.
Yeah. So, yeah, when they originally were putting out the Remaster project, they didn't really know how it would affect society, because society is already kind of, like, ingrained. It's already something that's an ongoing kind of thing. You have your characters and stuff as part of society. It's organized play, So, they have some answers finally.
So this is the fact that, like, they mentioned that they're, like, going to be changing their prices and doing a bunch of reprinting, and they're going to, like, change some of the rules to make them clearer.
Yeah.
That's what this is about?
The remaster is basically clarifying some rules.
Yeah.
It's fixing up little things, and it is removing a few things that are related to the original OGL. They're basically...
Got it. That's what it was. It was the OGL, right, yeah.
So there is some stuff that's being kind of removed or redone because they kind of have to. This is the step to separate them out completely with Pathfinder 2nd Edition. They're taking the same point to do these rules updates, to fix some things around, clarify some stuff. So that's why I've always said it's like a 2.1, because it is basically still 2nd Edition, and yes,
there's been a lot of like little Paizo announcements, so I was like trying to remember what it was related to.
It's been a process, the entire thing of like, oh hey, we've remastered these, and they've been talking about like, they're showing off some things about like how the little differences with the remastered classes are and stuff like that. That's something they've been doing, but again, they are trying to keep to the previous material. They are ensuring that players are not forced to rebuild their characters. They're incentivizing adoption of the new remastered rule set. And they are providing an optional method to rebuild characters into the remastered rules. So, they're trying to... If you don't need to, you don't need to. But they'd rather you start using the optional rules in the society stuff. But they are also providing optional stuff of like, here's a way that you can convert it from the one to other for the changes. Which is, I'm assuming there's not a lot of stuff in there. But it's enough little things, especially when you remaster a class and, like, specify some things and stuff like that. It's probably going to require little changes here and there. Because I have to take a look probably at the, certain character stuff. They do have a general guidance. Game rules, character options, the same.
Okay, so they're basically saying, okay, so this is what we're going to do for, like, Pathfinder Society play in regards to the new rules. Okay, I'm, like, reading through this now. It's like, okay.
Well, yeah, it's like they've gotten rid of alignment, and so they have edicts or anathema, and then holy or unholy as the kind of alignment-based things that they have in there. Which I think it's an interesting item, because it still kind of has some of that stuff of alignment without actually having to have alignment. Like, holy and unholy... Yes, we can kind of know what that sounds very much so like, oh, one is very nice and good, and one is probably not, They did do a lot of stuff to fix up wizards, and, yeah. So, and then as of the 15th of November, all characters that you have for the Pathfinder Society would have one free rebuild. Yep. It's a full rebuild. You can completely alter a character's ancestry, class, background, or options selected. You can alter the adventure a character has participated in, and you may, nor may you alter the character's reputation earned. So it's basically like, you can just rebuild your character. You get one free one. It's another thing to like help you with it, especially like moving on to new stuff.
Yeah, so what is the Pathfinder Society? I've heard about this a lot, but I've actually never looked into it. Is it like online play or in-person play, or...?
It's more in person, I think. It's organized play, because I would have...
I know. I mean, I get the concept of, like, an organized play, and I know it's kind of... I assume it's similar to... I've always assumed it's similar to the D&D's... what do they call it in D&D?
I can't remember what they call it in D&D. That's the thing I was trying to remember, too.
Like Legacy...
So I think these can be run at like stores, or an individual could run them if you want to sign up to be a member of the Pathfinder Society. Like, I could sign up to be a member of the Pathfinder Society and run games, and I'd have to have, like, set up things to do it, and there's scenarios and stuff like that for doing it. So I don't know.
Adventure League.
Adventure League. That's right. You are correct. I could not remember it myself.
So it's similar to the Adventure League, I assume.
Yeah.
Where it's like they'll do events and you can do things. I don't know. They're just like the way they're talking about it. It's almost like these are a lot longer running, and I'm like, usually those kind of the Adventure Leagues are usually like over like a week or over a weekend, or or like specified events. Although you can generally jump into the middle of them the way they do them. So I just don't know like what's going on here, because it's like it sounds like, okay, are there longer ones, or is this for people doing events, or what?
They've got the scenarios, they sell quests and bounties and stuff like that. I think it's like you have to have someone run it. Again, beginner's guide to... There's stuff like up on Foundry VTT, Path Builder, and stuff like that. So there are ways of doing it, but I assume like someone has to basically sign up to run it, I think, and then can run it with people almost. Whether it's at a store or even like, as I said, maybe I could maybe like figure out a way to be the host of it and like be part of the organized play. And we'd still do it at home, but we'd register our stuff with that. So that would mean if you would go to a convention, you could bring a character, and I would have like specified what happened with those characters in the organized play stuff. You know, it makes it that you can take your character and the adventures and all this stuff to various different places. It doesn't mean that I couldn't run those with people at home. It just makes those characters much more mobile, cookie cutter, something like that. So,
okay.
That's what I always felt like organized play was.
Like, because, like, I get you kind of need to come with, like, a pre-built character for most of them, but, like, just so you don't bog down that character by creating a character. But also, I know, like, 5e, it's generally not too hard to create a character on the spot, so...
Again, like, you know, if you know what you're doing in Pathfinder, it's also not, like... And if you have
For 2e, yes.
Also, like, if you honestly have an idea what character you're going to play, it makes it easier, too. Like, you're like, I'm going to build this character. You build right there or then, or something like that, you know. But, or yes, you could you can bring a character and show it off to the GM, and they can approve it and stuff. But, so, at least, you know, it's good that they're actually addressing this. This is a thing that, like, we who don't do organized play, it doesn't matter as much to us, but certainly there are plenty of people that do organized play for Pathfinder, Starfinder, D&D, and all those others. So when something like this happens, addressing it's a really good idea. So good on them. And the final thing I wanted to talk about today was there was one Kickstarter that is currently going with 23 days to go, and which I thought was neat looking, and was described as a little bit of had a little bit of essence of like Betrayal at House on the Hill with a little bit of like Castlevania, and it's Dracula's Curse. It's for up to 6 players with one as Dracula. So yes. One of you.
One versus a bunch.
Yes. So yeah, one player will be manipulating the dungeon using strategies to thwart the others. It is possible for like the other people to like I guess shift alliances and stuff depending on what's going on in the game. They're creating a bunch of different material for it. Pretty neat artwork. And it's very funded with 23 days to go. I'm not gonna lie about that one. It's very funded.
They have 3 stretch goals left.
Yes. There are some Kickstarter exclusives, so if you want to get it that way, they do have some information on how to play the game. So there's like a setup, and then there's the player's turn, Dracula's turn. And there's some rules on dying and game's ending. As Worm said, they do have the stretch goals that still have a few to unlock. They've got a collector's edition. They do have an expansion of Cthulhu's Curse expansion. Probably adds a little bit more things to fight against. There's some Kickstarter exclusive, a boss, an item, and extra castle stuff. So for 55 US, you get the normal one. 75, you also get the expansion, and 115, you get a collector's version. And yeah, so it seemed neat. It was a it's the style. It's a style board game I do like. It's interesting. Yeah, it's. I would be interested if they would have a rule set, or maybe they eventually will put a rule set for versus the board rather than versus a player. You know, they set up that you're supposed to have at least one person be Dracula, but maybe down the line they can have, like... Because they've done that before for other games where, you know, then they can have it, you know, that the board plays.
The one nice thing about that, in some cases... Oh, well... No, it specifically says 3 to 6 players. I was about to say, sometimes that's nice when, like, if it can be done 1 versus 1. Because it can turn a thing.
That's also an interesting one, too. Again, like, I don't know
if... It says 3, so you need at least 2 others.
Mm-hmm. And again, more expansions and stuff down the line, especially with them being this successful, might lead to more in different game modes or stuff like that. We don't know for sure. But yep, they have like they're pretty good. They even have a timeline of when they're planning things. They're like, you know, estimating games being sent to backers from July to August. So hey, and they've also got like links to this. This is the manufacturer the manufacturers we're working with. You know, I do
it's
like
honestly, yeah. I mean, it's just a thing to get like the ball rolling. I mean, that's kind of nice.
They've got a lot of stuff nicely set up here, and it's really good. So, I think that's another thing that's about it that really is great when you can see about some of these games and stuff. When you get a good display of information. Thumbs up for me for them. Big old thumbs up. They have shown off stuff very well. All right. Well. Let's see here.
Oh, yeah, that was the... Okay. Sorry, I was just like, was there something else?
That was our main topics for today.
Yep.
We did handle... There wasn't a lot. There was a couple of things, but again, like...
We got on tangents, which is fine.
Yeah. We had... Sometimes you've got good topics, sometimes you don't, and, you know...
I mean, it's fine. I just thought there was one more. That's really all it came down to. I'm like, okay, what's the next one?
Let me just check something more down here in this list. I talked about that stuff. I'm thinking about our topic for today, because I didn't put that together. Because, of course, sometimes I'm really on top of having a topic for the day, and then other times I'm just like, well... Topic? You know. Hey, how about we bring in one of these here? I think this is a good one for today. Why don't we talk about our week first? We'll talk about our week and that'll give me time to think. How did Baldur's Gate 3 go for you this week? Have you done more of it? Do something else?
No, I have been playing that. I keep planning to do something else, but then I'm kind of tired. I'm like, Baldur's Gate's a lot easier.
You're already there. It's easier just to pick it up and play it.
Yep. But yeah, I got to Moonrise Towers, which is the main place you find out about and for the second act. In fact, basically the entire second act revolves around it. And I fought the main bad dude, but then he escaped through cutscene magic.
Of course, cutscene magic, the one thing that protects everybody.
And I followed him down into a pit in the bottom of the into the bottom of the castle or tower. But before that, I also did a whole thing. Apparently, I'm doing kind of more of an evil. Like, it's funny because like I'm doing the good. I'm basically saving the world by doing like all the evil things. I'm basically doing the ends justify the means playthrough. It might come back to bite me a whole lot in the third act, according to some people I have talked to. But it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
All right. Well, we are going to have Yosef's game this week, so that wasn't last week. Wednesday, I had you all do your session zeros. There's for the Crimson Queen.
Yes.
So those are being uploaded to YouTube. If you've checked out, the first two are up. Lynn's and Momo's. I'm going in order that we rolled initiative, basically, see the order we go in, and we've been doing that. I'm putting them up that way. So make sure to check those out. I had more Moon Adventures. They're technically currently Moon Adventures on Thursday. We beat the crap out of a boss, and then woke up a dragon, and like the real boss of the enemies is like, "Wahaha! I'm going to destroy your world. You could just leave. You've got one of our ships. You've proven yourself worthy of that." And I'm like, can we murder you now? We're just so axe goes in, guts come out. Like I just want to fight this guy. I am playing a barbarian, though, so I'm very one thought pattern. Also because my character is it's been fun. I enjoy that game. There's like 3 sessions left. I really came in on the back end of that game, so.
This is the one that Momo runs, right?
Yeah, I vaguely know what's going on. It's because I came into the back end of the game. So, it's fine, but it's been an interesting experience to pop in at this late of a time in the game. So, I think that's all the tabletop stuff that we did. So I did figure out something that I don't think we've talked about, and it is important for something that's going on with us. It's with the Crimson Queen. Now, this is all of your characters, but you all have what would be best described in quotations, a dark backstory.
Yes.
Every last one of you, which is a thing that characters can have, and like this game in particular calls for it, but it is a style of gameplay for characters that you can play in a lot of places, but it is one of those things of like the dark backstory as a concept isn't always something that works, though, too. So I thought that's why it would be interesting to kind of chat about it a little bit. Because the dark backstory doesn't always fit the tone of the game necessarily. Because, like, I guess more lighthearted, friendly games, where you're going on just general adventures, your dark backstory might be there, but does it really matter as much? Like, and in this one, certainly everybody's starting from, like, a really negative point in time. But I feel like the tone of the game isn't really that dark. It's sort of like, it's meant to be, you're building yourself up from this, like, low point almost, kind of thing.
So, I think when doing backstories, it's actually kind of often important to remember kind of just the idea of how stories work. There's kind of something, I actually think all of them have something that happens. I mean, in fact, I feel like those ones are the ones who will engage with the plot because they have a reason to engage with the plot.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the whole kind of idea of the hero's journey, where trope, where it's like something has to change to drive the character forward. If everything was good, they have no reason to move forward.
Yeah, but I think there's a definite difference between like the storylines that like. Okay, so spoilers for Joe's a little bit here in a couple of days, or tomorrow, or Monday.
I think I'm today, and then Joe will be tomorrow, and then.
Well, today was Momo, yesterday was Lynn. You'll be tomorrow, and then Joe is Monday. So spoil for Monday: Joe's brother dies to drug addiction. That's pretty harsh. That's extreme dark, and I think that's what a lot of. Like, not all of your characters are like that, but there's a lot of that, like, murder, death stuff that's in, like, deep with some of your characters that's, like, it's more than just, like, my mom passed away and I couldn't get to, like, there's nothing I could have done about it, that kind of thing, that there's some tragedy in your backstory. No, this, my mom was horribly murdered by a man and who, like mocked me and threw the knife down in front of me or something like that. There's a very difference in tone of, just tragedy and, I guess, extreme tragedy, sometimes.
Yeah. I think my character actually has the least tragic backstory, despite the fact that both her parents die and her brother gets kidnapped. She just has the least, trouble in life. Because it's she got adopted into that after her parents died. Then her brother got stolen, but she's still nearby and able to try and look for him.
And I think it's that kind of thing of, I feel like your character is on that upward swing, of the emotional spectrum. It's you were at that low point years ago, but you've had some years now to rebuild yourself and feel like you're in a point in time where you can attempt to reclaim your brother. And then you've got, Momo's character is oh, well, your fiancé was just murdered horribly, and it's sort of and you're on a quest for vengeance. I mean, I guess, Lynn's character actually just is you were framed for murder, that's pretty benign.
Hers isn't too terrible either, but hers very much also, though, hers was actually not bad either. But also hers is, she's no longer able to, she can't, become the thing she dreamed of. I just rewatched hers today because, that's the one. I was busy, I was busy rewriting my backstory because Tanta said something I should change.
Yeah.
So I didn't catch Lynn's.
Yeah. And then,
but...
Yeah. And...
So she has to... so there's this thing where it's her dream was taken away from her.
Yeah. Which is a pretty big, dramatic moment, but it is, it's it's probably the least dark of all the storylines, I gotta be honest.
True.
It's sort of Cells is probably one of the darkest in a way, but it's this darkness that's not it's probably less fresh too, because there's this deep, unbridled trauma of a couple of years as a youth basically being maltreated and basically being child labor, child slave for a little bit before escaping. That's pretty dramatic and traumatizing, and it's not anything to be scoffed at, but again, it's sort of that's a weird other extreme in there. And I think it's sort of all of this is a very dark backstory and very tragic backstories, but it all helps in this one plot of all of you can blame your trauma, your darkness on this one person. You can focus together and come together to go after them. And that can lead you down a path,
I think Momo's is the most tragic because his is all it happened a few months to a year ago. I forget how long ago his was.
Not long ago. Yeah, it's just having, your fiancé killed and just the only thing you've managed to find is the name of the person that sold the ring that was on the body. So you don't even know, were they behind it or someone working for them behind it. You just know that.
What happened to the body?
I mean, you
he knows what happened to the body. The body was found, but I'm just how?
Yeah.
Why? What's the reason?
Yeah, you don't know why they were murdered. That definitely is it hits heavy home a lot of times.
Yeah. But yeah, so I do agree that the dark backstory, it depends on the setting very much. This one really does call for it.
Yeah.
But you're always going to need that change. I find a lot of the times the most bland characters are the ones who's I'm a lone wanderer. I've always been wandering. Those are usually the most because they have nothing that drives them forward, except for routine.
Yeah. And I worry that it can kind of be the other extreme of I have this dark and tragic backstory. I can't be friends with anyone because of it. There's that kind of side of things too that can kind of occur.
True. Basically, those make basically you have the two spectrums, which is the disinterested the backstory that leads to a disinterested character, and the backstory which leads to a problematic character.
Yeah, and I feel that's why the unfortunate concept between the dark backstory kind of it skates that line a lot of times, because you have to think about, like, you still want your character to be able to interact and work with the other players and be a member of the team. But, you know, you are correct about, like, a lot of good heroes and heroes' journeys are driven by the dark things that happen. And granted, there are plenty of adventures where the dark thing happens right here and now, you're confronted by it, that leads to the adventure. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be in the backstory part of it. Like,
that's true too. I mean, like, your character in Joe's game is very much, I've been chill, but now something's happened, and it's kind of my responsibility to look into it.
Or, I think the great example could be the opening of Skulls and Shackles, which I ran, where the entire group of players are press-ganged to work as pirates. You know, that's an extreme thing. Press-ganging is what pirates did to, or navies did to people. They're basically stealing people and forcing you to do work for a while. And yes, you can get out of that sometimes if you live, but again, it's pretty awful kind of time, you know? And that's an extreme event that drives characters in a lot of ways. And some of the characters had some extra tragic things in their backstory, some of them didn't. Like, honestly, Sel's character had no trauma whatsoever and was perfectly fine up until they got press gagged, you know?
Yeah.
But that's the kind of defining moment that leads to that group of people. And you can, it's, I can't say there was a plan for a defining moment here, so it definitely is more of a, it has that kind of unified darkness.
Yeah, I actually do that, like how Pathfinder kind of says, hey, you have a background, you need to pick a background trait that ties your character into it. I do like that about Pathfinder. It's like, a lot of games don't do stuff like that, and they require the GM to set up a lot of things, which is actually very hard, because sometimes, because you have to get your players invested into what you're doing. Whereas those ones, it's like, hey, players, get yourself invested by building your character around this concept.
No, yeah. I think that's one of the great things I do really like about a lot of Pathfinder adventure paths, is that they do provide this. And I think they've got something, I have to check, I think they have some equivalent stuff in 2nd edition too. That they do stuff. Yeah, they do stuff
there's like a trait equivalent in 2nd edition.
Yeah, they do stuff that at least links you directly to the story a lot of times in very meaningful ways. You know, and yes, the big disadvantage I do find with the Pathfinder ones, or at least, is that it's hard to recreate that connection if you get new characters. Not impossible, but it's hard.
That's fair. Yeah. Once that I mean, I have a vague concept of what I could do. For mine. My brother was stolen. Now you have my brother.
Yeah.
He may be young, but he is a rogue now.
Yeah. But again, like, it's certainly, like, I found ways of making it work, but there was definitely, like, disconnect with, like, we hate this person from the first adventure, he's our enemy. The others are like, well, you hate him, we'll help you out. Which made sense because they were part of the crew and stuff, but they did not have the same emotional connections and stuff there too, to that part of the story, to that darkness in the story that was built into it. Like, yes, this adventure, I'm going to tell you, part 1 is dealing with your trauma, and it leads into everything else, you know? It's, you're taking care of the guy quickly, you know? You're not really dealing very far in Chris Queen.
No. I assume that's the first out of 4 acts, right? Or is it 6?
Well, the entire adventure path, is 6 parts. In part 1, I'll say, like, there's, like, 3 main chapters.
Oh, so we're dealing with him in...
Chapter 1 in part 1. So, like, book 1, chapter 1, you deal with him.
Okay, so that whole mystery thing, which might be a few sessions, is going to end with him.
But it leads into a lot more. Because
I get that.
Yeah, so it's basically... It is this opening salvo into a lot of stuff that happens in the adventure, and it's sort of like, you know, certainly, it's built in. I've read through it. I think it's built in a pretty good way, at least the first adventure. I've got to start reading through the other adventures, too, because I do want to eventually. But there's plenty of games I've played in where it's very hard to have a character that you can have some trauma in your character's backstory, certainly, but to have it that kind of like that darkness which gnaws on you and is a negative effect on your character. This is the game where it works in because you're having the opportunity for revenge, justice, whatever you want. But there's like also, okay, here's the other part of it is if your revenge justice that would help your character exists, you're giving it to a GM sometimes and they can't tie it into the story.
That is a thing. I was going to say, the dark, I think it's okay to make a dark background as long as you don't make a dark character. Now, what I mean by that is that, generally it's problematic when the character is just depressing him. Your character can be depressed, but they shouldn't be depressing. They shouldn't bring everything down. They shouldn't, they should have a drive. The problem is depression doesn't drive people forward.
Yeah.
Which is why that dark and brooding character is such a common bad trope.
Yeah. Yeah. You want the dark and broody character can be dark and broody, but they can't be like a downer. They have to be like, there are those that work in the trope and plenty that don't work. And that's the thing is you have to kind of look to those that actually work. It's like, he's so dark and broody. But he still does the job.
Yeah, and that's not to say your character can't be pessimistic or can't be paranoid or that kind of stuff. It's that kind of stuff, those are personality traits. But, it's just that, especially that flat character that it's like, no, this is part of my character. He's just always depressed. He never wants to move forward. It's like that. Yeah. Well, we're in a game where you want to move forward.
it also comes up with things like I was given something in Buccaneers of Shackled Sea that was part of Yakul's super depressing backstory, because Yakul had an abusive father in a ways, and we defined what that was. That he was just. It ended up he was just a really terrible father, and he wasn't, necessarily doing anything bad to him. He just was kind of, more like, oh, I have a child. Okay, whatever. Kind of ignoring him, and basically ended up leaving him with some people that turned out to be really awful people. So basically it's like, I trust you to look after this my random kid that I have. Good luck on that.
Alright.
Yeah. But
yeah,
that entire part of that backstory existing and the interactions with that character were something that were kind of spurred on by Yakul putting it in the backstory, informing me of it, and then Yakul, because Yakul made a very good figurehead, being the forefront of the team. Yakul made a better mascot than a captain, but they put him as captain to be the mascot, and representative of their team. That made the forefront. That made it important. That meant I had to figure out how to address it. It wasn't too bad, but I could definitely have seen if I went to the extreme that Yakul originally kind of talked about, which I kind of tapered it a little bit with that backstory of, that might just be how the person as a young child sees things now that they're an adult, a lot more, because they don't understand a lot what was going on. But still, it made me have to deal with it. It wasn't necessarily bad, but it's a fine line kind of forcing your DM to kind of do something.
Yeah, and I mean that's why I try and ask my GM a lot of stuff. I ask a lot of you growing forward.
And again, taking the new game here, Crimson Queen, for example, that stuff is built into the story. It's front and center. It's made to be there, but the story is built that way.
Yeah.
You don't always get that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I also have more and just... Yeah, but the thing about, a tragic backstory it is one of the easiest ways to move a character forward. It's one of the easiest ways to basically say, my character's life changed, and now he's trapped. You know? Whether or not it's tied directly into the backstory, you can get a character moving. Or directly into the story moving forward, in the backstory can get a character moving forward. So, it's not bad as long as you don't use it to justify your character being an asshole, or being the stick in the mud.
or make it so extreme that, it just feels like the story itself is like, oh my god, how did you survive? Don't go extreme with the backstory, too. You as a character have to think about how you survived and got to yourself in that point in time.
Yeah, the problem with those extreme backstories are often that, it's generally someone trying to be like, hey, my character's special. GM, make my character special. Which is why it's okay, that's why those extreme ones are bad, where it's all like, oh yeah, no, there was I survived a genocide, then I moved on and, survived, a god stepping on a town, then I moved on and, it's all like, it's all like, okay, you want this to kind of affect the world, you're dictating too much about what's happening, and your character's already, too well known. There are ways to do it, but that's just, making your character the special little snowflake.
I'm gonna admit, if they had stopped with, I survived some kind of genocide, my entire town was slaughtered, that can be a story, an invading army or a bunch of monsters slaughtered every in my town, I'm the only one that survived. That can be a fine backstory for, honestly, that's the kind of backstory that drives a lot of people to be, heroes a lot of times, just stick with that, and it maybe explains, why you're being a very good person, heroic person, want to help people out, you want to prevent stuff like that from happening again. Don't be, broody about it, but certainly that's a good opportunity to go that direction, just, you have to also use that correctly, because you could also be like, oh, I've lost everything, there's nothing left for me in the world, what can I do?
And I think it's hard because so many people go into these games. Okay, what can I do that I think would be fun?
Mm-hmm.
Or what can I do that I think would be interesting? Or how can I make how can I make the character I want to make? But I think I personally love to go and being like, okay, can we connect our characters? Is there a way to make it I generally like to build around other fellow players because it's I think that makes things a lot more interesting. Interconnecting things. Making your characters more unique. So it's just, personally I'm going with this, I lost my train of thought.
I did think of something with talking about this, about a backstory that has some kind of tragedy in it, that was a call to action, that the character is not heavily affected emotionally by it.
Oh yeah, you got the whole disjointed thing.
Yeah,
I can touch on that after.
My character in Momo's game is part of a group of tribal people on a continent that was overrun by undead. Because we were basically this tribal group in the south, we survived. The northern part of the continent where there was actual human cities, ravaged, destroyed. We were just tribal people in the south part of it, we were probably thought as primitive by the other humans. We lived through it. There's still undead on the continent. My entire reason for going halfway across the world is we need magic items and magic spells and stuff that we don't know about in our people to help fight these things. I need to go get aid. That's my character's motivation for going there and for working with these people. And now we've gotten to a new world-ending plot, so I'm I probably should help this out to help my people, and then maybe, my new friends will help me go purify the undead, because that is a problem, but it's not as major as, the end of the world. But it is a motivation for my character, and it is a little bit of a dark thing to have, oh, your tribe is plagued by undead. That's pretty terrible. It's not everybody I knew died or anything, so that's it's a bad thing, but it's not, it's a call to action. I think that's another thing you can do, is you can have something that is a call to action like that, that's not quite as hugely tragic, you've this dark or tragic thing is going on, kind of, or happening, but it doesn't have to be world or reality shaking for a person, you know. It can just be something that is motivational in changing the way you do things, or taking a step in a different direction. And that can be something as simple as, like, someone you know and love dying. You know, it could even be, like, a pet dies or something like that, you know, in like, a way that drives you. You know, like, maybe, you know, you're out
John
hunting
Wick.
with your... What? What?
I said, like John Wick.
Yes! But I was thinking, like John Wick, that's a good one. That is that kind of thing. It drives you in a direction. I was thinking more like you're out hunting with a dog, you know, and it gets killed or something, and you're like, maybe I have to be the best. I should be a better hunter. I could have killed that thing, you know. My dog saved my life, you know. I could be better than I was, you know. And then you want to maybe travel and learn about being better. Go out to the world. Go out on adventuring, you know, that kind of thing. That could be the defining point in your change from, like, Joe Schmo to adventurer, or the person that goes out on adventures in a role-playing game, can be something as simple as that.
I also wanted to bring up the other pitfall of the tragic backstory. You make your backstory very tragic, and then it doesn't affect your character at all. That's the other problem, where it's all like, oh yeah, my parents died. No, I watched my parents get heads chopped off, and then I had to go, like, escape crawling through, like, a barbed wire forest, and that's why and now I can cast spells, and I'm a happy-go-lucky guy, you know? It's like...
Some of that can kind of work to a degree. If you have that character...
Yeah, I mean, if your character's like, that's how he copes, or that's, you know, or that's what he does to try and, like, be more positive, but, like, there are ways to do it, but then there's, like, those people who it's like, oh no, their past just doesn't even matter, even though they have this tragic backstory.
Yeah. It's like something... A backstory isn't necessarily always an important thing in the long run. It's important to help establish your character and establish how you think your character should act. And it sometimes comes up in your game, it sometimes doesn't come up in your game. It's good to have one, because it does kind of establish where your character's coming from, how your character fits in the world. But, like, those little details about it, and those are all that matter, you know? Yeah. So, when you
it's
build...
like...
Yeah.
Sorry, I'll let you finish.
When you build your backstory, think of that in mind. Don't, you know, if it's got the tragedy, if it's got the thing, if it's got that defining moment, you know, you do ask yourself the question, why did I become an adventurer? Why am I traveling here? What motivates me to, like, you know, go beyond my home? Those are important questions. And yes, dark, tragic things are the easiest motivators. Just, as we're saying there, like, they have to be important to you in a way. And that extreme case of, oh, this horrible thing happens and I ignore it, you know, that's not important to why is it there then, you know, or, you know, you were saying.
Yeah. Oh, I was just going to comment, I was just going to make a kind of more of a side funny comment of, yeah, basically your backstory is like the education you receive. Once you get your first job, no one ever looks at your, aka the game starts, once you get your first job, no one ever looks at your education again, they only look at your previous job history.
Yeah.
Sorry,
yeah. Sorry, I was making sure because I think I'd forgotten to. Okay, you checked too.
You at the very beginning. I checked.
I just turned on that I could on the audio. I could hear myself for a second there again. Just was like, I didn't check earlier. I reset it when we started, but I didn't check, and I've been trying to make sure to do that.
I checked. Yeah, I did check for you.
Thank you.
I actually I started with the sound on so I could hear you.
Yeah, I've been trying to turn on the channel where it goes through my headphones so I can at least hear myself briefly for a second.
Sure. In fact, I'm going to talk to you after the thing ends. I actually want to talk to you about something because there's something I figured out which might help that.
Okay.
But anyway, but yeah. So yeah, there's lots of ways. I think again, like almost every person builds tragedy in their backstory because it's just an easy go-to. But yeah, you can't make it. Yeah, your character should reflect it to some degree. They can grow and change. People grow and change. Your characters grow and change, and that can happen with the story. you know, and then there's also the so, but at the same time, it's going to be
it should matter then. Like again, you could even build into your backstory how you've gotten a little bit over that tragedy. You know, you could build that in your backstory, but it should still be like, you know, like I'm trying to be a better person. I'm trying to be more happy or lucky after this tragedy, kind of thing like that. But it should reflect it rather than in your character, rather than I'm happy-go-lucky all the time. It's more like you are attempting to become more happy or something, you know. And it's a struggle still with your character or something like that. Or, you know, like... I guess you could still find happiness in your backstory if your character's a lot older or something. Maybe you found some backstory, but...
I mean, that's another part of a backstory. Like, you had a tragedy, you got over it, but now that is causing you to want to do something else. Like, that's another way of doing a backstory.
Yeah,
so, like, now I want to go and help people so they don't have to suffer the same kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, like, it could even be like, once you encounter the adventure, it could be like, that could be the start of the adventure could be your call to action because you had that tragedy you overcame and you want to be like, oh, hey, you know, I can help someone else with this, you know, so it doesn't happen again, you know? You don't have to just have a dark backstory, but you can still have tragedy is the other thing I guess we can say too. You know, there's a lot of nuance to this entire thing that exists, and I think it's important to remember that, and just also remember to be a person. When you make a character, make them a person. I think I've talked about this in other times and topics, but it's another point in time to kind of define it, you know?
Yeah, personally, I like to make a backstory because it helps me generate kind of what I'm going for with the character. Sometimes I don't do that, and it's fine, and I develop my character as I play. But it kind of depends on, like, situation about start. It's like, let's start a game next week, okay, and it's like I have to build my character. So sometimes it's just whatever. But yeah.
Even if I don't have a full backstory, I at least like to have a couple of sentences or something, you know, just to help define it. Like the character of Joe's game, honestly speaking, currently the backstory that I started with is like 2 lines. You know, it's sort of like he came from a noble family, he was kind of disgraced, put in a position in this town in order to basically have a job and do something.
My backstory in Joe's game was basically my ancestry. But there's a reason for that. But anyway, that also reminds me, though, it's like there's also the importance of actually defining your character's personality. I feel like a lot of people don't do that. I kind of used to not. I actually been working on that. So now I actually define, like, I actually have a list of, like, I want to say, like, 600 personality traits, and I always try and pick a few. Like, I pick, like, 3 positive, 1 neutral, and then, like, 2 negative.
I think that's the one thing that I do like about 5th edition a little bit more, that they have it, the personality stuff, that you make some notes front and center for your character. You know, it's on your main sheet right there, so you start thinking about it.
Yeah. I don't like the way they set it up, though, of, like, ideal, bonds, and flaw. That requires you to kind of create a backstory, which you don't always do. Like I just said, it's like...
Yeah, like...
And also, bonds are hard if they're not interactive, if you don't get...
Yes.
You know, if you don't work with the GM. Ideals can conflict if you build it into your character too early.
Yes. There is some flaws in the system, but I like that it exists there. You know, I think that the concept of it, to put it into the forefront, is important because, like, yes, they talk about that in both Pathfinder 1st and 2nd edition. They have places that discuss it. There isn't really a place. I don't know about 2nd edition, but I know in 1st edition they don't really have a place like on a sheet. 2nd edition might have it on one of those extra sheets or something. A place to put stuff down for personality stuff, but like 1st edition, really, they might have had like this is your character's backstory, this is a character's personality. It was
based on 3.5, which is highly mechanical. Like D&D prior to like 4, I feel like was highly mechanical. they focus a lot more on the rules than the actual playing. And that was fine. That's the evolution of role-playing games, like, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think 3 is where we started seeing that, because, like, that was when, in those earlier internet ages, we got, like, things like, there were documents that I know me and my friends had found that were, like, basically character, like, history/personality questions. There were a bunch of, like, simple questions that you could, like, go over for your character and help define them. I think the 3.5 book might have talked about some of that stuff, too. It was just, like, the lists that we found were a little better than what they talked about in the books.
Yeah. I mean, it's, like, basically... I do feel like a lot of the very early starts of tabletop games were kind of more war game.
Yes.
Where it's like...
Oh, yes.
And that's why a lot of them started out with, like, a lot heavier rules, but now that's kind of evolved into something that's a lot more storytelling.
I actually do think the original D&D was developed because I think the story is that, like, Gary Gygax and I can't remember the other one were doing stuff like war games, and just came up with this concept of something a little bit more while they were doing those games. But it is based off of the earlier war games from, like, the 70s and 80s and stuff, which is really neat to think that they existed.
Yeah. So it's kind of just, so I feel like there is still a lot of bias with regards to, like, people focus a lot more on mechanics, story, and personality.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I like a lot of, there's certain people I watch who talk about this kind of stuff, like how to be a great game master and stuff like that. Those kind of channels, which do address more of the personality side of things, or like the way, which I like. I think it's a good idea.
I think it's the important thing that, like, I'm always more of the how to be a better game master is always how I think. Is how can I improve from my last time I ran it? How can I get better at stuff?
Yeah, what did I do poorly last time? What did I do well? I mean, actually, I really liked the Traveler game I ran for you guys. Even if it wasn't like, even if it didn't finish, I got stressed out and I had to cancel it, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But that was like one of the first times I really figured out how to organize a session.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know if you noticed, but my sessions were actually a lot better than, like, in previous games we played.
It had been long enough since I played it previously that I don't think I noticed it, but I could see that you could probably notice it. But honestly, I had a good time.
Yeah.
I liked my character.
I will say, I was very lucky with Bastion Frontier, because the players also really helped drive the story a lot. I had a good group there. But the fact that I was able to drive the story with such, I'll be honest, two-dimensional characters in that Traveler game, I felt like that was pretty good.
My character wasn't made to have the dimensions. He was meant to be just he was like some dude that ran into this entire thing. He lost his leg in an accident and managed to have enough medical insurance to get fix stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's very much like I definitely needed to, because I was building that a lot, pretty much at the same time as I was trying to get everything together. So, like, honestly, in the future, it's like one other thing I did learn is, like, you know what, I'm gonna have to really have, like, make certain my players have, like, a short backstory, even if it's just a paragraph. I want to know where you're coming from. Also, I need to provide a hook, honestly, that's basically like, okay, here's kind of what's going to... I didn't describe what's going to be happening.
Yeah. I think that was the thing. Like, I felt like some of our characters had less of a reason to join. Like, I felt like, my character probably had the most reason to join. I just lost my job. I was in a terrorist attack. I lost part of my leg. I just got it back in the hospital. And some of the people that helped me out were like, hey, we can maybe do something to prevent this from happening again. That was the kind of, almost, I felt like the plot line for my character was like, I guess we can do some... It's like, man, I don't have anything more to do. I lost my job, and, this horrible thing just happened. Yeah, I can help out to maybe stop some terrorists and stuff, incidentally. I'm okay with that. That sounds like a great idea. Oh, you could have me pilot a ship? That's the one thing I know how to do! My god, I have a job again! It's sort of like, this was the evolution of my character's thought patterns, it's like, I got a job. I can like stop some terrorists now. I'm doing good in my world. I'm back on top of things, you know.
Yeah. But anyway, so that's probably I think a lot of the stuff I did wrong was actually the very first few games, just because I was trying to. It was hard for me because I had to gather people, and then some people left, and then I gathered more people, so it kind of threw me off a little bit. And I really should have had one more session 0, like where we actually talked about backstories and stuff, and got that together. Because I mean, we didn't do that till like later, where I'm like, we really need to regroup. So yeah, it was I could have done better. Yeah, but also, so there was stuff I did well, stuff that, honestly though, it was really a test of, like, I'm so happy I figured out how to organize the session, because going forward, that'll help so much.
Ooh. Anyway, so, we should leave it there. That's kind of like our PSA on, using tragedy, but also, like, being a dark or tragic figure. You can be one. You can have tragedy in your backstory. Just be smart, and as I think the I guess slogan for it is just have your character a person. That could be like the slogan.
Yeah, make your character make sense for being or whatever you are.
Well, person, being, appropriate being to the world you're in. Yep. So, we already talked about what we did this week, so I guess that leaves us to outro-y stuff. If you missed any of the tabletop stuff I talked about this week, I will shout that out. You can always check that out. Some of it is still being uploaded to YouTube, but you can always check it out here on Twitch. It'll be fine. I talked about horrors in both Earth Dawn and Shadowrun on Tuesday. They're an interesting kind of topic. Talk about the Konrasu, weird kind of strange alien/plant things, and Golgon, the old Cyclops Empire, on Thursday, which was just fun to talk about. I didn't realize they degenerated so horribly when they fell into, like, ritual sacrifice, cannibalism, and dark god worshipping. They fell hard. I talked about ghouls earlier today. Which is also a very interesting topic, because it's a very dark topic to talk about ghouls in Vampire the Masquerade. They are not treated well at all. So, yep. Thank you again for joining me, Worm. I'll throw a shout out to you. What's your schedule this week before I go over mine?
I should be streaming tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. PST, and then evenings, Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays at 7:30 p.m.
My schedule will be some kind of gaming on Monday. I don't know what. I've got one more spooky topic for Tuesday. I'm going to talk about the infected from Shadowrun. So, ghouls, vampires, all those kind of weird kind of creatures that aren't really those creatures because they're disease-based in Shadowrun. Magical disease-based, technically. So they're kind of undead, but kind of not. It's still magic, but it's also plague. So, yeah.
Say, mate, better have a really good one for the Halloween day itself.
The Infected is a pretty good topic to talk about. They're pretty dark, but
yeah,
tabletop topics are a mess. Back to a normal schedule probably after that for Wednesday / Friday, stuff like that, and all the other tabletop schedules. I have some things to talk about. And then the Crimson Queen will be going live, the first one, at 9 p.m. on Wednesday evening. It'll be starring Lynn, Momo, Worm, who's with us now, Joe, and Cell. So a bunch of characters, some kind of switch around from the group from Buccaneers, but we got some new people, old people. Back to Pathfinder First Edition. It's the Curse of the Crimson Queen. If you're interested in following along the adventure path yourself, it's going to be fun. I've already enjoyed the characters, and it feels like a good setup. I think we're going to be well for it. And then this show back on next Saturday in the evening. And if you want to check out any of this stuff, there's also on YouTube. Great ways to support for subscription on YouTube. Follow here. liking, commenting, all that stuff over on the YouTube side, all that kind of things. I have social medias, Discord, and Twitter.com. Check those out. And I think those are all the major shout-outs that I can do off the top of my head. So I'm going to say, for one final time, thank you again for joining, Worm. And to all of you out there, thank you for watching, wherever you're watching. I hope you have yourselves a great rest of your day, great rest of your Saturday, great rest of your weekends, and see you next time any of us do anything in the future. But until then, farewell!
Bye.